My name is Anastasia and I'm going to be doing Chapter 5, the skin. The skin has three components. We have the epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis. I'm going to get a little into the epidermis and the dermis. So first with the epidermis, we have the cells of the epidermis. The epidermis, four main cells are the keratinocytes, melanocytes, Langerhans cells, and Merkel cells. Keratinocytes are what help keep our skin abrasion resistant and waterproof. Melanocytes produce melanin, which is are the brown tone in our skin. Langerhans cells activate our immune system to help fight off those foreign invaders, and Merkel cells act as sensory receptors for touch. When you get into the epidermis, we actually have layers. I'm going to go from superficial to deep. So first we have our stratum corneum, which is the first layer, most superficial layer. We have our stratum luceum, which you actually only find in thick skin. Thick skin can be found in the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet. We have stratum granulosum, stratum spinosum, and stratum basale, which is the deepest level or layer. For thick skin, stratum luceum actually isn't what makes the skin thick, it's actually the stratum corneum. When you look at thick skin, it has all five of these. When you look at thin skin, you actually just take out that stratum luceum. So that's kind of that for the epidermis. The dermis actually has two layers, the papillary layer and the reticular layer. The papillary layer is a thin upper layer. It's actually areolar connective tissue, and that has dermal papillae and dermal and epidermal ridges. Dermal papillae are projections of house nerve endings, which they provide more surface area for us. And dermal and epidermal ridges are actually your fingerprints. It helps you sense the touch of vibration. It's pretty interesting. The reticular layer has lines of cleavage, which are tension lines. And those are actually invisible lines that represent built up collagen in our skin. And then we actually have flexure lines, which those are where the dermis is actually attached to deeper structures in your body. So that really kind of sums up the components of the skin. Epidermis is superficial, dermis is in the middle, and hypodermis is the deepest. Next, I'm going to be talking about skin color. So we have different types of pigment concentration in our skin, and the first one I'm going to go over is carotene, and which is the yellow orange pigment that when you kind of look at your palm, it has that orange or yellowy tint, or the soles of your feet. It's kind of where that thicker skin is. Then we have melanin, which is the brown tint to our skin, which is kind of found everywhere pretty much. You have a brown, darker color skin. The dermal blood supply, which is like a hemoglobin, can be like if oxygen levels are low, and your skin could actually turn like a bluish tint from not being able to receiving all of that oxygen. Those are kind of what gives us our skin color and how that works. Type of them. Next, we have our glands in our skin, which we actually have two different types of glands. We have pseudoryphosis glands, which are known as sweat glands, and we also have sebaceous glands, which are oil glands. So for pseudoryphosis glands, we have eccrine glands, which those are found mostly all over your body. They're 99% water, and they empty out onto your skin. And then we have our apocrine sweat glands, which those are found in your axillary or your groin, and those are actually mostly fatty acids and proteins that come out. and they actually empty into the hair follicles. Under optic glands, we have mammary glands, which produce milk, and then we also have cereminosus glands, which produce earwax, which help keep the dirt and the dust out of your ears. With sebaceous glands, which are oil glands, those produce sebum. They keep your skin nice and moist. Sometimes people have more oil than others, but they do keep that skin nice and moist. Next, we have our functions of skin. We have different types of functions for our skin. The first one being protection. We have different types of barriers that protect our skin and ourselves, like a chemical barrier, which is like our melanin, a physical barrier, which is like being waterproof, which, it helps from the keratinocytes. Another function of our skin is actually thermoregulation. We keep our body temperature regulated for like when we are too hot or too cold, we're able to, get to where we need to be. Another one is our cutaneous sensory reception, and that falls with our sense of touch, and it lets me know if, ooh, that's really hot, or ooh, that's super cold. We have our metabolic function, which is where in our skin vitamin D is actually activated. We have our blood reservoir, which is actually 5% of blood is in our skin. My bad. We have excretion, which it excretes ammonia and urea onto our skin. And that's kind of pretty much for the functions that we have. We have a bunch of homeostatic imbalances of our skin. Our first one is striae, which is actually a fancy word for stretch marks. You get those when you're pregnant or you gain weight. Another thing is blisters, and that's actually when the epidermis separates from the dermis, which causes that like bubble. And then we have effects of UV, which is clumps of elastic fibers in our skin. We have abnormal coloration, and that's actually we have some different types. We have cyanosis, which is like blue tint, which is when your oxygen levels may get low. We have arrhythmia, which is the blushing or that red tint of your skin when you get a fever, or you're just really warm, you work out really hard, you get that red tint to yourself. We also have pallor, which is like a pale or you're scared. It gives you that flush tone. And we also have judice, which is a yellowish tone, which is actually when people turn very, very yellow and they have liver failure. So that kind of goes with our abnormal coloration. Next thing we have is a hematoma, which is actually another word for, I would say, a bruise. It's a blood clot underneath your skin, which gives you that like dark blue black color, which would be known as a bruise. We have different types of skin cancer, unfortunately. We have basal cell carcinoma, which comes from the stratum bacilli. We have squamous cell carcinoma, melanoma, which is pretty fast spreading, and we also have a rule for different types of moles on your body. If you ever notice something like changing, it's called the ABCD rule, and it's looking for asymmetry, border irregularity, color, and diameter. If it's not looking right, if the border's bumpy, if it's off colored, if it's getting really big, always look out for that. That's what's under our skin cancer. And then lastly, we have burns. There's 3 different types of burns. We have a 1st-degree burn, 2nd-degree burn, and 3rd-degree burn. With our 1st-degree burn, we actually have damage to the epidermis, which is like a sunburn. Nothing major, but not good for the skin. We have the 2nd, which is through the epidermis and into the dermis, which causes that blister, such as like sun poisoning. It's like too much for your skin. Or we have the 3rd, which is the full burn through the dermis to the tissue underneath. which can be pretty bad. My name is Anna, and that was my overview of Chapter 5, the integumentary system, also known as the skin. I went over the epidermis, the dermis, the skin colors, the glands, the functions of our skin, and our homeostatic imbalances. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.